All right, we are recording. Hello. Today, I wanted to talk about a subject that I'm really passionate about. It's graphic design. Like, I have my beer ready, so I thought we could just browse through my hard drive and try to find stuff that we did for the film, and just hang out a little bit. Graphic design, in my opinion, is very important for films because it kind of gives this unified style. It can just help to give your film some identity. So during pre-production, we had to design some stuff that would be seen in the scenes. So the first thing I did, of course, was went to the internet and I wrote Dr. Pepper. I actually forgot the original. And I just looked at their logos, right? Because of course Dr. PEEPEE is a joke on Dr. Pepper. And I think this is something that inspired me the most. So I just found a vintage font to write the name with. I added a shadow to make it stand out more, and then I created this strip underneath with a little drop at the end. And of course there's all this gibberish around like trademarks and ingredients and whatnot. So it's just a quick example of designing something from scratch. Our first film, Slice of Life, has these cigarettes very prominently in the film. It's not the cleanest design, there's too many fonts. There's this Blade Runner font that I wouldn't probably use nowadays. But this logo that was just designed for this package later became the whole logo of the movie and of course the YouTube channel and everything. So yeah, it was designed just randomly, but then it turned into something else. But now, since we had the film set in the 60s and we wanted to just place these cigarettes somewhere, in the scene just as a fun gag, I actually designed the old version of Slice of Life cigarettes, like the 60s version, right? And then Slice of Life is kind of like this handwritten font because it kind of looks like Coca-Cola style or something, with this stripe as well, so it kind of looked older. So one important thing for the film was the logo of the agency of the NASA, basically, where the movie takes place. NASA has the interesting policy because it was funded by the taxpayers' money, by basically all the people living in America. Everything that they produced is in public domain, so you can use all these pictures of astronauts on the moon however you want because it's free, it's public domain. But their logo isn't, because NASA paid some designer to design the logo. So this logo that everybody knows about, basically we couldn't use it legally in our film. NASA, of course, means National Aeronautics and Space Administration. NASA is catchy, but definitely it's an acronym for something that's definitely not catchy. And I made this. We needed something that's logical, so I basically wrote National Space Agency here, and I tried to design something. It looks bad, of course, but it's just a first idea. On the NASA logo, this red thing in the middle represents flight. So I said, okay, that's kind of cool. I'll just do a red swoosh or something. I didn't like the letters outside the circle, so that one definitely sucks. That one sucks as well. This is horrible. This one, maybe the circle around the planet, but it's starting to look like Saturn, not the Earth, or it's just confusing. So yeah, all these are basically, they suck. But they were all made like in a couple of minutes, just randomly throwing ideas, brainstorming. So then we said like, okay, let's try to change the name. Like let's call it American Space Agency, right? And the short acronym would be ASA. And it again kind of looked stupid. Then we tried National Space Agency, NSA, but NSA actually exists already, so that doesn't work, we were just pretty much stuck. American Space Police Agency. That's so stupid. What else? USSA, United States Space Agency. All right, so I would say like that United States Space Agency, that sounds legit, but the acronym looks like USSR. It looks Russian almost, right? So the problem with all these logos was that NASA logo is so familiar that if you make something that's kind of similar but not NASA logo, it just looks confusing. This is all completely confusing, which is a problem. So I found the NASA insignia Wikipedia page, and I found that in 1969 they had another logo as well, which is this one. And I really liked it because it looked official but not really recognizable. So my next idea was let's just try to do something like that, right? I tried National Space Agency, putting it into this circle or something. United States National Space Agency, yeah. And the one that we settled on in the end was the United States Space Agency, right? So it just kind of has these 4 words. It's readable. Everything's kind of cool. This is something that will work. It just has to be designed properly. So I called my friend Duye, who is actually designer. He actually makes money from designing stuff, right? That's his job. And by the way, he was the extra in Slice of Life. He's the junkie in the back alley smoking this kind of drug or something, right? So he designed this. It's a much more tidier and nicer version than my logo. And he also created this monotone version of the logo because a good logo should work in a single color, and this proved very useful. So when you watch the film, you will probably see it in a bunch of places, and you're not gonna pay attention to it because it's just a random logo. It's official, you know? Yeah. Oh my god, it's so hot. It's the middle of summer here, and I'm sweating like a pig. I have this fan, but it's not helping really much. The next thing we had to do were the ID cards. Everybody in the film is the employee, more or less, of the United States Space Agency. And again, I did the most logical thing. I researched the official NASA ID cards. So these are actual cards that were worn by people in NASA, right? Look, this is so nice. It's just so retro with the rounded corners, you know, and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. The fonts are, of course, extremely important. I mean, I don't even have to stress that out. But for example, if we change the United States to Comic Sans, of course, immediately it's completely different vibe. So the fonts are very important. So I had to find a font that would work for a lot of stuff in the film. And I really like this font from this card. It looked retro, but it looked modern as well. Here's a really quick tutorial about searching for fonts. You can just crop something that you like. It's probably best if you make it a high contrast thing. Clean it up a little bit, all right? And then you go to the website called What the Font? What the Font? Font Finder, whatever. And then you can upload the image. And then it identifies it for you. So it gives me a bunch of fonts that are very close to the one I liked, right? So I basically downloaded one of those and I started to design my own ID cards. I was just looking at this one and I said, okay, it has a tan background, so I just did this. And then I just looked at this pattern in the back and it was so cool. It says NASA. Of course, I did my own and I wrote United States Space Agency because that's our company, right? Here's a great example of the monotone logo, right? A full color version would not fit here, so that's why we have the monotone and all the text. And here's that font that I really liked. So the final thing I was missing was the photo. So I told everybody just to send me their own photos. They were like normal photos. They weren't in costume. They weren't like, you know, Matt didn't even have the mustache or the sideburns or anything, right? So I started with an image like this. I cut him out, of course. And then I had to like find a different suit for him, you know, do a little shadow on the neck, grow sideburns very fast, a mustache. And then the thing is that all these old photos, they're very blurry, they're not that good quality. So I took a blur tool and I would just start blurring everything around, because if they focus on your eyes, your ears are already like blurred, you know, that's kind of like, that's how old photos look anyway, right? So after a while I had something like this, and then I added some color to make it sepia toned. This is just a texture of some white scratches on a black background. And if you use this screen blending mode over everything, it just leaves the white parts and the black ones disappear, right? So it looks immediately like it's a photograph with scratches on it. So I do a bunch of textures like this. I use, you know, some film grain, more film grain, and then it looks really old. So in the same vein, I did photographs for everybody, all the main characters in the film. There were a lot of different ID cards, right? So he is a spokesperson, so he has a certain card. And he's an administrator, so I turned his card yellow. George, on the other hand, he's just an employee in the warehouse, so I kind of designed something like this. Not very fancy card. Here is the special one for the astronauts. Of course, then we had a lot of extras. Some of them are the employees of the company, so they had the stuff like this. You know, it says like United States Space Agency, Kennedy Center. I also took a lot of screenshots from the Apollo 11 documentary, so I kind of looked like what badges are they wearing, and this guy had some blue badge, right? So I made the blue one as well. I don't know, we had the visitor. So this is just a random visitor, not the employee, right? And of course we had a lot of news reporters, so they had their own ID card, and the presidential party card. When the president comes, then they are all wearing this one. So once I designed them, I sent them out to the printing studio, and then I would glue the photograph of everybody on it, because it's like a second layer. Okay. And then to make things even crazier, I would type names on the actual typewriter, because that's what somebody would do back then in 1969, right? This person is authorized to enter, and then I had to enter all the numbers of the places where he can enter. You know, it was a lot of work, and a lot of them also have the backside, and where again the name is typed, and I signed it because it says security officer who needed to sign this, right? So I signed my own signature. But it was very enjoyable. I like this type of things. I like making props. Alright, so that font that I found from the actual NASA ID card, I liked it so much that when the time came to make some titles for the movie, I actually used it as well. Here we have an example of Day of the Apollo 11 launch, right? This was written in the same font. So I just started using it for everything in the film. Every scene, like Day of the Apollo 11 press conference. This official paper from the company, same font. Jack Van Keur giving a TV interview, same font. Press conference name tags, same font. I mean, of course, this is not really important for the whole film, but I had this font that I can always rely on, and I think it kind of gives the whole thing a visual identity, right? Alright, so this is a big one. The film is now filmed, and the next thing we need to think about is the poster. As always, the first thing I did was a little bit of research. So I looked at some old posters from Hitchcock movies. They're very, very different to the posters we have nowadays. A lot of them are even painted, the characters are painted. Our film is black and white, but from the beginning I knew that on the poster we should have some yellow, because P is yellow, and we can just, you know, use yellow and black and white. And this was my first try. You can see that it's very, very heavily inspired by the Hitchcock one. For the birds, it's the same, yellow on the left and stuff like that. It's not really good. I didn't bother with the credits, actual credits. I just copied this from the other poster because I really quickly want to just get a feel for it. I did a bunch of those and they kind of, I don't know, like I wasn't really satisfied with any of them. Here I tried putting the Van Keur as well, which brings me to another thing, and that's if you want to do a poster after a film, plan in a photo shoot with the actors, because we didn't. So what I had to do was browse through all the photos from the filming and try to see if, you know, maybe this one can work. Here it is, you know, here it is. And that's not really a good way to work, but what can you do? And then I did this one. This one kind of looks okay because it's the whole cast within the shape of George. But the problem is it looked too modern. I didn't like it. So I said, okay, I need more research. So then I remembered Saul Bass, who is a graphic designer who did a bunch of posters and opening titles for the famous movies you've seen. You know this. This is like two colors, yellow and black. It's so bam in your face. It's powerful, right? Vertigo. This is so cool. It's so clean and iconic, and I love it. Oh, and this. Just two blocks. And then I thought like, okay, blocks. These blocks are really good. What I did was this. It's so ugly. It's it's so horribly ugly now that I see it. But it was a try. It was a first try. I'm not really a graphic designer. I studied graphic design in high school, but I never actually, you know, I never upgraded on it. I tried a bunch of different colors, obviously. Nothing really worked. Then I tried just two colors. Urinals. Okay, it's a symbol of our film. Not really clean. I don't like it. No. Then I tried to just blatantly rip off the Vertigo poster. Not really cool. Again, I just copied their title just to have some graphics in the corner. I would of course replace it later, but this is just like quick way of working, just brainstorming. I knew I wanted the Saul Bass type of poster, but I didn't know what to do. So then I tried to make something completely clean, which was this. I don't know. And this one actually reminds me a lot of the Terminal movie with Tom Hanks. Do you remember that poster? Let's see. Terminal. Oh yeah, look at this. It's kind of similar. I haven't watched Terminal in 20 years. I liked it a lot when it came out. Do you even remember that movie? It's like a romantic comedy made by Steven Spielberg. Let's see the trailer. Terminal. It's a film about a guy stuck in the airport, and it sounds like something that can be filmed for $5 million. But of course, with Spielberg involved, they just decided to build the whole airport. Of course, from what I remember, it was too complicated to shut down a part of the actual airport. And they just built the whole huge set with stores, with escalators, with everything, you know. Did this movie even make any money? Because they had to build an airport. Terminal. Budget 60 million. Box office 219. I guess they did make some money. Back then, films could still make money. Even romantic comedies. To get back on track, I was lost with the poster and I called my friend Due again. So he came up with this. Alright, it's definitely much better than my attempt at Saul Bass. I didn't like this color. He tried the black. It was alright, but not really that good. Then he came up with this. And for the first time, I was like, okay. I was forcing this peanut thing in the back, and he thought it was too strong visually, so he did it as an outline. I was like, fine, all right. I really like the shapes of these squares. The shapes of these squares turned out to be really important for our film. You'll see why. Oh, it's a really good cliffhanger right now, right? Oh, the squares. He tried to do it as an angular thing. I didn't like that, so I said, no, go back. So he did this, different sizes of George. This looks like he has this halo around it. I don't know, we tried a bunch of stuff. And I think the final version was this one. And another thing that I wanted to do was the insert poster. Insert poster was a poster that they used to make for theaters back in the day. It is like a slick poster that they would hang in the lobbies. They're not really a thing anymore. Nobody makes them anymore. They're so elegant. Oh, look at this. I want to watch Thief right now. A great soundtrack, by the way, by Tangerine Dream. Of course, the Blade Runner one. It's cool, right? This shape is so cool. So I said, let's design an insert poster as well. But for the insert poster, we wanted to include the other characters as well. So we found a bunch of pictures of them, from the film. And he even included the dog, which was funny because, I mean, he's a character in a way, right? So he just put them like this, and I really liked it. We just tried to develop it some more. This is with red color, maybe too busy. Then this is interesting. And then he did this with the broken dripping effect, and I really liked this. I thought like we can make it better, and then we did. And this was the final one, because here they're placed in a logical way. Here you can see that, I don't know, here's Jack Van Kirk, here's Neil Armstrong, it's just random, right? And here, George is the most important, hence his name of the actor is the biggest one. Then Matthew Simpson, he's on top. Then Sam Rintoul, this is him, Neil Armstrong. So they are like positioned in terms of importance, right? In terms of how many lines they have in the film, basically. And then Nixon and Laboratory Supervisor. So, and the dog, he doesn't even have any lines. There's a logic to it, which makes it a good design. At least I think so. I just quickly want to mention our design for the name of the film. If you remember, I had that font that I was using for everything, but as you can see, that one wouldn't work for the poster. It kind of looked lame. A lot of the old posters had custom designed titles, which we liked. So Due found another font and created a custom title out of it. And I actually drew the whole title, on paper, scanned it and placed it on the posters. So here are the final posters, both the insert format and the standard one. It was quite a process and there was a lot of brainstorming involved, but in the end we really liked them. But the last thing I want to talk about is what is it? Title design. The titles are often the first thing that you see when you're watching a movie, and they kind of, they put you in the mood for the film. So logically, I just watched a bunch of Saul Bass titles. 1 hour and 5 minutes of his titles. Perfect. And look at this. This is a man with a golden arm. Look, just white stripes with the titles. It's just so clean. This guy just distilled it to the most cleanest aspect of graphic design, and it's impressive. Our film is set in 1969. We gotta do the old school titles, right? I started playing with the graphic elements that we have in the film. One of them is the peanut, right? So I took the peanut and I animated it, it just rotates. There are these black droplets. If they were yellow, they wouldn't be seen, basically, right? So I had to make them black. It's just like, it's always about the contrast, I guess. For the font, I used the one from the poster because this one kind of looked good to me. So let's watch it. Slice of Life Films presents. And then there's the peanut, right? That's the first thing you see. I did it in color just because I found it more entertaining for me, but of course it's gonna be in black and white in the end. As you can see, the animation is a little bit rough. I did it intentionally because I tried to emulate the handmade animation. And you can see how the peanut is like moving in a jagged way, right? On top of that, I put some paper textures because it looks like it's made from paper, which it would be. And of course, I did a drop shadow effect. Look, because if this was a piece of paper on top of another piece of paper, it would kind of have a little bit of shading underneath it. So it's a nice effect to make it a bit more realistic, right? So the same process was made for every next slide, Slice of Life and Kinoteca production, whatever, right? And this is how it looks when it's all combined together, Everything is like, you can really feel the frames. It's not smooth, it's far from smooth. And that's intentional, right? I wanted to make it like jagged and, very, very roughly animated. And as you can see there's like rectangular shapes that I kind of use from screen to screen, which is the idea I got from the poster. There was also the end credits scene. There was a bunch of these slides that I had to do as well. Here's the first one, directed by Luka Hrgovic and Dino Julius. And I created a little lunar lander in the corner that's like descending. And of course I try to connect the visual element with the text. So of course, written by Dino, a typewriter, it's kind of connected, right? But the typewriter is something that appears in the film as well, so it's kind of, everything is connected. Producers, right? What's a symbol of producers? I thought like a shoe. It's like, they step on stuff. Well, director of photography, a camera, stuff like that. And for every single slide, I had to find a different composition with these rectangles. I could just take this and move it here. Maybe that's better, I don't know. I spent a lot of time just arranging these squares to make them, you know, visually appealing and logical, so that everything would be in harmony and in balance. I have a bunch of these paper textures, and you can just put them over the footage and instantly it gives it this tactile feel, right? Then I would definitely blur the edges. Boop, directed by, it's very blurred right now, without width, because the lens would be kind of blurry on the edges, and of course the black and white filter. For the end of this video, I saved the best thing in my opinion. You know how before people would project movies from the actual film, 35mm film, right? And you would have a projector, and if some piece of hair, actual piece of hair, found its way into the projector, it would just like wiggle in the corner, right? During the projection. So I always had the idea of actually putting the hair intentionally into the film that we're making. And this was my opportunity. So I actually went to my garage and I filmed some hair. I taped the hair on the white paper and I just used my phone because it doesn't have to be that high quality. And I was gently blowing on the hair to move it. This is an actual piece of hair. I think this is from my beard. I promise you it's from my beard. But I realized that they are like too thin, they would get lost. So I used a piece of thread instead because it's a bit thicker. And then I cranked up the contrast to make the background completely white. And finally, I could just put it here in the corner. So when you finally see the film and you watch the end credits, there's gonna be a hair wiggling in the corner all the time throughout the whole end credits. And this is probably the thing that I'm most proud of because nobody even notices that, but it's there. There's the hair in the corner. Yeah,